everybody, and welcome to the Everything is Fine, Nothing is Ruined podcast. I'm your host, Hassan, joined as always by co-host Tristan.
That's me!
And folks, I'm going to be honest, I don't know what kind of a time you're going to be in for in this episode, 'cause when I asked Tristan what we're doing, he just looked at me and said, sexy clown time. And I'm not sure if that's all a euphemism, if the clown part's a euphemism, sexy's a euphemism. I'm not really sure what you should prepare yourselves for, folks.
I don't think I said sexy clown time. I'm pretty sure I didn't say that.
You definitely said that.
Oh, okay. Are you sure? Because I have something entirely...
You said we're going to talk about something the internet says is sexy clowns. And that we're going to have a sexy clown time.
I don't think I said it quite that way. Like, verbatim. I wouldn't have said it that way. Or would I? No, I probably would have, actually. Well, okay. Here we go. This episode is about clowns who are sexy. And you know, they get the face paint thing happening, and the baggy clothes, and sometimes when their pants fall down, and it's funny, their pants fall down, but it's sexy. Instead of wearing like heart boxers, they have lingerie on, and you can see their entire, you know, shebang.
Doing clown tricks in lingerie doesn't sound pleasant.
No, that's chafing. There's you gotta powder up like crazy, or some sort of grease, some sort of runner's like Astroglide situation happening. Yeah. But hey,
not into this.
You got to get the sexy job done. And look, the internet's really real into clown girls. So there's that. I am confused by this aspect of the internet. I wish not to engage in it. Anyway,
so episode over? Is that what we're saying?
For the sexy clown part, yeah, I guess so. I didn't prepare anything for sexy clown time. I'm not here to talk about sexy. Man, like I don't know how this keeps happening, where you somehow mishear me, or I just maybe I misspeak. I don't know, man. Like sometimes I feel as if I'm going crazy.
You are going crazy.
Oh, thank fuck. All right,
yeah.
That explains everything. As long as I'm going crazy. Well, Hassan, I'm actually here to talk about something else entirely. Maybe not so different from sexy clown time.
Great.
If certain aspects of the fandom are to be believed.
Okay, go on.
We're going to talk about the amazing digital circus. It's Son, what do you know at the show?
Here's what I know.
Yeah.
I watched some of that pilot way back when, and pretty quickly knew it was not for me, because the best way I could describe my feelings on this show is it felt like Newgrounds mixed with Tumblr humor in the art style of like Five Nights at Freddy's / Roblox. You know, just that very like more modern, sort of like kid friendly. I don't want to call it horror, but let's say spook. Like, I guess I would call it like
Spoopy?
modern kid version of Hot Topic.
So Hot Topic. I mean, still
Is
around.
Hot Topic still around?
Sure is, bud.
All right, yeah. Then Hot Topic, like,
Yeah.
it wasn't doing it for me. I know people love that
Mhm.
show.
Mhm. Mhm.
Pretty fervent fandom online, but I watched maybe like not very much, probably only 3 to 4 minutes, and just kind of immediately knew this is not going to be my thing.
Okay. So, let me put it this way. It's possible the 3 or 4 minutes that you watched was not a representational take on the show.
Okay.
Look. Here's the thing. While I agree, yes, it looks like a Five Nights at Freddy's kind of crazy thing with like a bit of a like Tumblr humor kind of situation. There's a lot of these aspects to it. It's very, how do I put it? Very internet savvy, you know?
Yeah.
Stuff that I'm not usually into. But I think the Amazing Digital Circus is, at least for this year anyway, one of my favorite pieces of science fiction that I have ingested.
I would have guessed that show was fantasy.
No, science fiction.
Huh. Okay.
So, Hassan, let me preface this with, what do you know of Harlan Ellison's "I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream"?
Only what I have experienced of watching a playthrough of the video game of it.
Yeah, that video game is pretty good. I'm assuming that the Super Best Friends playthrough, that one's kind of famous. So
I honestly don't recall, because I mean, at this point, I think it was like 10 years ago I watched a playthrough of it.
that's probably the one.
Could be.
Yeah. So here's my other question. And that is, if you, knowing what goes on in I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, would you call that a kid's show?
No, I would not.
All right, fantastic. So the Amazing Digital Circus. Also, actually, anyway, third question for you: do you like Digimon?
Oh, I would say I used to like it, and that as it's gone on, I've become less and less interested in it.
Okay, fair enough. But you know of Digimon, you know the premises and all that stuff.
Yeah. Tristan.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
I know all the original Digimon.
Fantastic. Now, take I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, and then mash a heaping pile of Digimon in there. And, I mean, take the good conceptual parts of, like, Sword Art Online and also put those in there, too. I know. Just the one where it's like, oh, the death game, they're trapped in the world kind of stuff. Just like that aspect.
Only the first 5 minutes of that show.
Exactly. The best part of that show is the first 5 minutes. I swear to fucking God that is the case. Unless you're watching Sword Art Online abridged, I couldn't care less about Sword Art Online. The abridged version is pretty good. I mean,
your word for it. I don't know. I've never watched it.
It's a good bit of comedy. I'll say that.
Okay.
Anyway, so the Amazing Digital Circus is effectively a mashup of a few of these ideas with a heaping dose of true existential terror. You have a lot of these larger concepts. Like I said, this is more of a horror sci-fi show, with the horror being a little more understated versus what is actually presented in the show, because it's presented as everything's fun, hunky-dory, we're going to go on adventures, have a good time, that kind of thing. But what is actually going down is we got to talk about the nature of existence and what it means for the soul to be here, and if your brain waves make up the aspect of who you are as a person. So it's also got a bit of that, like, you know, Ghost in the Shell aspect to it. Now, that's like the higher concept side of things. Realistically, what the show is doing is episodically plopping the characters into an adventure and going, here's a fun little quest to go on. Enjoy the fun little quest that the characters have while they're being friends and or not friends, whatever's happening. And and that's basically it. Goodbye. But then, yes, existential dread, discussion of how to leave this digital world. They are trapped in here, and they cannot get the fuck out. And they're having a hard time dealing with that. To a point where multiples of them have gone crazy. They forget who they were, with the exception of some small aspects of their life. They do remember kind of like small things, as well as some of the big swings that their lives took in this case. Some of them don't remember those aspects though, and it's kind of like they're just there. And some people have had their mind all fucked up, so nothing is truly real.
So is the show purposefully trying to do some sort of a juxtaposition between the art style and the, say, subject matter?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Much in the same vein as like Five Nights at Freddy's basically did the same thing, where like, here's your fun, goofy mascots, but they go and eat you. They booger you and they eat you while you're in the security booth. Yes, that is effectively a similar idea as what's happening here. This is not a new concept. Obviously, we've had stuff like this in the past. Stuff like, I don't know, Studio Ghibli's like Grave of Fireflies comes to mind. Shit like that. Where if this is a innocent looking show or movie or whatever, and then turns out, oh, it's actually a horror, or it's more of a poignant, sad thing, or, you know. Yeah. The juxtaposition is definitely there. It's well explored territory, and the way Digital Circus is doing it is not necessarily anything different, but it's kind of the way they write around those concepts and how they make things work for them episode per episode, and building on the main plot, as well as having these like really kind of fucked up like character progressing discussions. Because this is a really good character study as far as what these what's happening here, because each individual character is very much their own little world. And the Amazing Digital Circus does a good job of, in my opinion, of making them feel like individual universes per person. It works especially because like they know each other, but they really don't, in a way, because they show up in the digital world. They're all staggered as far as their entrances go. You know, some of them have known each other for longer than other people have. And going from there, it's easy to be like, things feel very isolated in this show. Like, characters will talk to each other, of course, and they'll discuss things, and they'll reveal certain traits of each other, of themselves to each other. But in a way, somehow in the writing aspect of it, they always kind of feel so very distant, and that is on purpose. And it's an interesting way to write a character study. So it's kind of like that. That's laying the groundwork for this. Getting into the meat of it, what this show is effectively about is Pomni, who is your main character, the little clown girl you've probably seen online. If for anybody who does not know what this show is, she shows up in a digital world hosted by a ringmaster named Kane, who is effectively a pair of chattering teeth with eyeballs in the mouth, wearing a ringmaster's outfit, who flies around and has her and her quote-unquote friends go on wacky adventures across the amazing digital circus. You have Ragatha, who is a Raggedy Ann doll. You have Zoobles, who is kind of a fucked up like a child's toy mishmash kind of thing, like put together multiple pieces into like a new, different toy, like a kit bashed, like a Mr. Potato Head kind of situation.
Oh yeah, I've seen this guy before.
Yeah, there you go.
I would say God, I can't think of the like, is it Cubist I'm thinking of? He almost just looks like an like Cubist kind of absurdist art creation.
Then you have Gangle, who is effectively some ribbons with like a set of theater masks for a face. And she is very, like, the point of is that she can't keep her comedy mask up for long because it usually ends up being broken. It's kind of a joke, but it ends up kind of not being a joke as you. Like, it starts off really funny for like the first episode or two, and then as the show progresses, it's like, no, why do they keep breaking it, kind of thing. Then you have Kinger, who is a chess piece. He's a king chess piece with like a full like raiment and everything. And he's kind of lost his mind. And there's Bubble, who is a bubble with sharp teeth. Bubble's strange. Yes, it's an AI assistant kind of thing. It's a whole shebang. There are other characters as well. They meet NPCs, and those NPCs are often the actual jokes, I guess, in the show. But there were other characters, other like, I guess, playable characters in this case, even though they aren't really in a video game per se. But you know. So these characters will often, like I said, go on these crazy adventures and into these fun things that Kane has set up for them to try and effectively give them a good life. Like, he wants them to have fun. And he wants to kind of entertain them. But he's A, bad at it, and B, doesn't understand the fact that they just actually don't want to be here. And C, he's very distant with the information about why they're there, how they're there, and what he's doing to them. And there's always seems to be a little more than he's letting on. And that's the case. So the pilot episode, of course, it introduces you to the main premise of the show, obviously. But a big thing that it introduces you to as well is the idea of abstraction. And yes, we're going to talk about abstraction right away because it's kind of a big deal. The main threat in this world is not the fact that they can't get out, but it's the fact that abstraction is a thing. And abstraction is effectively, it's kind of vague as to how you get there. By the last episode, it's a little more obvious. I guess last episode / movie. But it's a little more obvious as to how it works. But abstraction is effectively you've lost entirely yourself. Your digital self is kind of fucked up to a point where it can't work anymore, and you turn into a crazy, messed up shadow facsimile of yourself with like a bunch of eyes everywhere and weird sketch lines, and you're not doing okay. You become very violent and all these things. Oh, I've got with Jax. I've got to
want to go there?
You don't want to go there, no.
Okay.
Yeah, abstraction is the main thing that they don't want to do. Also, I forgot about Jax as the other character. Jax is very important. So, abstraction is the big problem that they're all trying to avoid. As far as like, how do you get there? Like, we don't want to. We want to make sure we do this right, and we want to escape, but we don't want to abstract. And like, the other thing is they can't really die in this world, so death isn't a problem. And neither is swearing or doing drugs or having sex. So none of this stuff is an issue. So it's like, yeah, the main thing is trying to avoid abstracting, which you've lost yourself. You were at that point, you were no longer yourself. It's all this whole thing. And the pilot starts off and shows you an abstracted character who, we learn a little more about this character later on in the show. But the first things first is to show you right away how bad this is. You don't want to be abstracted. They turn into a rage beast. It's terrible. Avoid this at all costs. Obviously, the rest of the pilot is mostly geared into introducing you to the characters as well. Like I said, they all have their own certain aspects. Pomni is, as your main character, is very fish out of water, very nervous, very how can I put this? Very like cloistered, like inside of herself.
Doesn't sound like she's a good clown.
That's the point, I guess.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, she's very introverted for a clown.
Piedmont didn't have that problem.
No, he didn't. You're right. Jax, which I didn't. I kind of skipped by. I feel bad for them.
Yeah, we know about him. Metal arms.
No, not quite. Different Jax. Cop. He's not a cop in this one. If anything, this Jax would definitely kill a cop.
Actually, it's special forces. I don't think he was ever a cop. Forces. I can't remember. Yeah. Because Stryker's the cop.
That's true. Stryker is a cop. He has the power of gun, which he's the. That's why he's fun to use in Mortal Kombat. Anyway, Jackson, this is a big old rabbit. He's a big purple rabbit with pink overalls.
Animalities. Gotcha.
Sure. And he is a bastard. Jax is a piece of shit to everybody. And Jax kind of explains the fact to Pomni, we're cartoons. You can't hurt us. So you might as well just go crazy and do cartoon stuff to people. And obviously, Jax being a big cartoon rabbit, Bugs Bunny is the direct one-to-one comparison. Like, what if Bugs Bunny was a more obvious piece of crap than he actually is?
Yeah.
Yeah. WaAaCkY is basically your pseudo mom character. She just wants everybody to be happy and get together and get along and that kind of stuff. Gangle is also a nervous, sad wreck who just can't seem to keep herself together. Like I said, Ribbon's comedy theatrical mask, comedy tragedy masks. Kinger is crazy. He's lost his mind. He barely knows who he is, and he has a hard time keeping thoughts straight in his mind. To a point where he comes off as lol barbecue, but like there's a reason for that. I do like the way that Kinger is used here. And then there's Zubul, she is a she they are basically a they're basically like I said, the Mr. Potato Head kind of character, but their main thing is they are effectively the sassy punkish best friend kind of character who's like there for everybody, but for sure has that like damn if you do, damn if you don't kind of attitude, like whatever, doesn't they care. Zool goes on the least amount of the adventures as possible because they just have no interest in it, and oftentimes will tell Kane off, and Kane just somehow accepts that, even though he is an all-powerful AI being. So, so that's this is the main premise, and you look like you have questions.
No, go on.
Right. And yeah, so episode 1 kind of kicks off with those aspects right away. It's like, yeah, you're in a cartoon. Don't worry about it. You can kill whoever you want to. You can just run around and do crazy shit all day. Don't worry about hurting people. You know, you can't die for any reason, even asphyxiation, etc. But abstraction's a real problem. But don't worry, we're effectively in a weird video game. It's not like don't worry about it. We're just have fun with it. But also, we want to try and find a way out. So episode 2 happens, and episode 2 more so explores the world of the Amazing Digital Circus. And when they go on an adventure, Pomni interacts with an NPC who she kind of interprets as a real person, like her and her friends. His name is Gummy Goo, and she ends up like smashing into him and glitching out of the world into a weird limbo space. And they kind of have this conversation about the nature of existence within the Amazing Digital Circus, and whether things are actually real or not. And Gummy Goo has no real idea. But they do pull up a file that is basically like Gummy Goo, like Gummy Goo's like A pose in the game, and he realizes that he was created by Kane to be a character in a game. And so Pomni like rallies him a little bit and gets him to come back with her to the Amazing Digital Circus like hub world, and to try and question Kane about this, and to be like, hey man, you can't just like give a character full sentience and not deal with it. And so what ends up happening is they bring him back, and Kane's like, oh shit, he's an NPC, and deletes him. Which is a character that,
I don't know what else you thought an evil god was gonna do.
Exactly. That's the thing.
Like, oh, we'll talk it out. It'll be cool.
Yeah.
Nurgle and Slanesh, the problem is you just gotta talk to them, and then all of a sudden that everything would be good. That's just been, everybody's been trying to resolve things through bullets and cane swords. No, you just gotta talk it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Space Marines understood that. They do the most talking, I assume.
Well, that's a tough one. I don't know. In some ways, I might say the orcs, if only because they're constantly shouting.
Shouty. Yeah, it's true. They're real shouty, and they like putting red on stuff and yellow on stuff.
Praising Gork and Mork.
Good old Gork and Mork. Anyway, episode 3 happens, and episode 3 is basically what if we had a fun, crazy adventure in a like horror video game. It's a survival horror game, and I will say this with some of the games they choose, that they do a good job of kind of like hammering down on the aspects of these games. That
kind of horror game.
This is more of like your Resident Evil kind of game, but there's also like a it's more so like modern Resident Evil, where like there is definitely a thing that chases you.
Yeah.
a lot more. Yeah. I know that was the thing back in like Resident Evil 2 with like Mr. X and Tyrant and that kind of stuff. But like, this is a more current Resident Evil where there's definitely a thing that will always chase you.
Large vampire mommy in it?
Not in this case, no. There's no Lady Dimitrescu. I know. Instead, it's this giant white glowing head with a bunch of teeth in it.
Yeah, not doing it for me.
Yeah, it shouldn't. It is a lady.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get chewed up. That's actually not that bad a way to die.
Yeah, well, you can't die in this world, so it's still scary, but you can't die, you know? Just saying. But yeah, you do have to kind of win the games, though. I guess I also just made a realization that this...
Oh, so it's a reboot.
Reboot, yes. I guess it is very reboot. Either way, the thing with this episode is that we get to learn a little more about Kinger, and as Pomni is, she's kind of teamed up with Kinger throughout this adventure, and they start delving into this game deeply, and they're in the darkness for a long time, and then it turns out that Kinger, when he's in the dark, does two things. A, he starts glowing, so he's a source of light. And B, he actually regains a lot of his sanity. There's something about him being in the dark that makes him just kind of remember who he was and how he's supposed to act. And he starts kind of like, instead of spouting a bunch of crazy nonsense, he starts making more sense, like more and more sense over time. And Pomni realizes this, and she's like, "Oh, you're actually not as weird as you normally are." And he's like, "Yes, no, I'm regaining my thought process. I remember who I am. I'm like I remember what happened here, and these crazy things happened. I had a wife, all this shit, and like she was in the game she was in the circus with me, and like I think I'm a programmer of this game kind of stuff, and I think I know how to get out. All these things. So this starts the aspect of like we gotta like trying to fuel the fire of like we have to get out of here. But this episode is a great one for them, just kind of like hanging out, trying to play the game kind of, and escaping, and more so just trying to like determine what the hell is happening in this world and how can they get the hell out of it. Next is Fast Food Masquerade. Which is an episode basically where Kane gives Gangle more control because like she's always lacking control over herself and of the group, and she's often the one kind of like put to the wayside, and we don't care about Gangle too much. But it turns out Gangle has a couple things that she's talented at. One of them being art. She's a really good manga artist. And the other one is she used to run a fast food restaurant, but like from what you can tell from the episode, she ran this thing as if she was like running a boot camp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But like it still maintained that corporate Walmart, like everybody's gotta be happy kind of feel. Yeah. So it's kind of terrifying. This one is fun because they introduced a thing called silly sauce, and that's basically a sauce that they put in the burgers that make people like go weird and tell the truth, and it's effectively like being drunk.
Sorry.
Yes.
Was silly sauce just within the digital circus, or she had silly sauce in the real world?
No, this was within the digital circus.
Okay.
Yeah,
all
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Little bit concerned she was running a restaurant where, basically truth serum in the burgers.
I mean, have you ever been to like a Jimmy Buffett's restaurant kind of thing?
Nope.
Margaritaville's got it.
I don't want to go to Margaritaville.
They call it a zombie.
I do not care for Jimmy Buffett music.
What? You don't care for Jimmy Buffett's music? My
no.
God. You? No. But your whole thing screams Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah, I regret wearing a shirt with anchors on it, but no.
You got a shirt with anchors on it. Your background, you got plants in it. Like
Nope, you've got me there.
Right now, you're screwing Jimmy Buffett to me, man.
Yeah, that's
cheeseburger in paradise for forever. Yeah.
Anyways, Digital Circus.
Yeah. So this one's a lot of fun, but it also like it brings back like a plethora of NPCs. To kind of like parade against the people, and Gummy Goo comes back, but like as a fucked up doesn't like a erased version of himself. The Pomni ends up obsessing over him the entire time because she effectively watched this guy who she befriended die. Yeah, she's having a hard time with this. This episode really hammers home how these people act under pressure. And this one's a good one for Jax because you learn that Jax just has no sense of care for authority, but has this need to be seen as better than everybody else. Or at least like on par. Doesn't want to be othered too much unless they're being othered for being better. And yeah, a lot of this is just how can I put this? A lot of this episode is a deep kind of like study into Gangle's whole shit and what she's like, how she is and why she can't keep her comedy mask because like if it's people keep bumping into her and she drops it and that kind of stuff and that breaks into a tragedy mask. In this one she's kind of giving a fucked up like more humanic expression mask that actually will like the mouth will move and this kind of stuff a little more, and as opposed to Gingle usually does a lot more like body acting in the show to tell that she's talking. Even though the mouth and the mask will sometimes move a little bit, it's more so, yeah. She's very, I guess, hexadecimal in that aspect.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. There's the next episode basically called Untitled. This is the one where they do a lightning round of adventures where like Kane's having a frustrating time giving them a fun adventure because they keep hating it and telling him how much they hate it. And he's like, but I just want to have guys have. Why don't you guys have fun? Okay. What if we choose from a hat, like some adventures that you guys want to go on? I've read your minds and I put the adventures you want to go on in the hat. Let's go. And so basically they just keep choosing new adventures, and they get a voting system as to be like, yeah, if you don't like the adventure, if you get unanimous votes, we move on from that adventure. This is one where basically we get to experience the most of Jax's fucked up aspects because like his adventures get chosen more than everybody else's, and he just wants to basically hurt people, like just ruin his friends as much as possible. And this is when you start to realize that Jax just, despite being in this together with everybody else, Jax doesn't care for everybody else there at all. Like maybe in some way, but the closer Jax gets to them, the more he starts to like bag on them and hate them, and just really push everybody away. This culminates with a softball game, like your classic animes kind of thing.
See, I was thinking Deep Space Nine.
That too, I guess. This one basically they play against themselves, but the evil versions of themselves. And that's a fun little thing. I can't remember the exact phrasing of the line, but like evil Pomni is like, I'm evil Pomni, go fuck yourself or whatever. It's
Okay.
like, yeah, okay, that's fun. Yeah, it's a fun few little jokes here or there. It's a good time episode, except for when they end up in the bar. There's a point where they end up in a noir bar, which is Zubal's thing, and they start just like really really discussing like what, like trying to get the hell out of here, and they realize by this point that there is a way out, that Kingo can actually help show them a way out. They just need to like really plan and get ahead of Kane and figure out how to like remove all this bullshit from where they need to be. So yeah, they this episode is there's only 9 episodes of the show, so realistically every episode is as important as the last one or the next one. Especially because like the release schedule of the show is kind of wonky. Let's say we'll get there in a second. Episode 6 is titled "They All Get Guns." That is exactly what it is. Pomni is teamed up with Jax. We learn that Jax is fucked up, and Pomni is starting to kind of let loose and understand the world a lot more. A big part of this episode is Pomni understands the world. And that like there's a lot more happening than meets the eye, and she understands that basically like, like using the cartoon video game aspects to her advantage is something she has to do to kind of survive here, if not try and get out. Episode 7 is a beach episode. They go to a beach. It's got a weird fucked up fish. It's great. This is when they also encounter a mannequin. A mannequin named Abel. And this mannequin is basically is depicted as an NPC, but tells them like, hey, I look like an NPC mannequin, but I'm not. I'm actually a real person in the game, and I'm here to try and get you guys out. I figured it out how to get out of here.
Trusting him.
You shouldn't.
I'm not trust him.
Shouldn't. Because next episode is called it's just keyboard smashing nonsense. Yes. So let me put this. So before we get to the next episode 8, it is revealed that Abel actually is an NPC put there by Kane because he hears everything and he knows everything. He's omniscient, if you will, and he knows that they're looking at escaping the game, and he's like, "Oh, what a fun adventure that is! Escaping this game!" And so he put Abel there to give them these like little breadcrumbs. And he's in previous episodes, and that's how they kind of determine, like, oh, we should escape the game. And now he's like, okay, I'm seeding this thing, and with Abel's help, we can get out. And no, they can't, because they are trapped there forever. And yeah, great, you'll never get out, and that sucks. And the next episode is effectively they determined how to get out. Which is basically in like through one of Kane's rooms that he goes to that they can't quite get to, but they know how to. They just need to basically distract him long enough so he doesn't pop in and just teleport them out of there. And so this is a whole episode about them antagonizing Kane, and you get to see him like unleash this like the true like he basically is Am from I Had the Mess That I Must Scream. And he unleashes his true like godhood within the game, and starts just like he's not killing the characters, but like torturing them, like legit torturing these people. as much as they possibly could. And that then that basically is them trying to antagonize him to a point where they can get the hell out of the game and get Kinger into a console because he's a programmer. So he can basically, figure out how to get out. He gets a console, he brings it in the darkness, and starts reprogramming the game, and he effectively erases Kane.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the
now
next...
what?
Yeah, now what? And so the finale. He comes out of his little like hidey hole, and they all discuss like, yeah, I erased Kane because I didn't mean to, but I kind of made a wormhole to get us out of here, which caused him to get sucked into it, and now he's effectively dead. Whoops. And then he's like, okay, I found some other evidence while I was digging around. And that evidence is that how can I put this? The evidence was basically that what he's found within Kane's files are brainwaves, scans of each individual character. So, as it turns out, by this point, they've come to the conclusion they don't actually exist. They are the brain scans of people in the real world, and not actually real themselves.
Why did they scan the brain of a fast food manager?
So they don't quite delve into that too much, but there's like a project that was happening, like when you look into it, the people who had the went for the brain scan were either down in their luck or they needed money, the kind of like medical study kind of thing, or they, various other reasons why they would want to do it. But basically, it was basically a medical study of like, can we do this and can we turn this into a thing? And the whole program effectively like went belly up and pretty much stopped, except for this small little aspect where the scenario is being run. So they've all determined that they are trapped in the game forever. They don't actually exist, except within the game. And they need to make the best of what they have right then and there. It's at this point
just turn the game off.
You could. That's one of the fears they have now, though, is because if you turn the game off, do they keep existing? Do they not exist? Can you reboot the game and then they will be back to what they were? Would they have the same profiles? What? It's also by this point that Jax, being just a real piece of shit, has pushed away everybody to such a high degree, especially during the previous episode, because I didn't mention this, but there are two buttons in the previous episode. One that's kind of like escape the game, and the other one's just like, stay here. This was in the previous one, but the one before it. And while they're trying to escape with Abel, Jax presses the button that's like stay in the digital world. And everybody's like, why did you do that? And he's like, I don't know. I don't know why I did that. But like, it then turns out he was right. He wins the game. And Kane's like, oh, you want to stay here. That's great. I love you all. And he's like, oh, I won the game. Fuck you guys. And like they all hate him for it because it turns out Jax is willing to betray them for his own personal gains. And so like over the last episode, over episode 8, they start distancing themselves from him quite a bit, even though they're like, "Hey, we need you on board to escape the game and this is the plan. This is their heist. And in episode 9, Jax is so isolated from everybody else and so pushed away, and he's so off on his own that he ends up abstracting, which means he's effectively a goner. There's no coming back from abstraction. And this episode is about Jax. Pomni confronts the abstraction, and through her greater understanding of the game and how things work, and with Kinger's help, she kind of understands like how to manipulate things like the code in the game, as if she's like a Neo, the One situation, but she's more so done so through learning as opposed to being a chosen one. So she dives into Jax's code and kind of sees what he saw and his memories, and this is all about like what he was going through before she had gotten there, because he had lost 2 friends. In episode 1, the pilot, the abstracted monster was Kaufmo, a friend of his. And before that, they had gone through an abstracted character as well, who was a frog, and they kind of go through a bunch of like figuring out what Jax is all about, and there's a protracted scene of his memories from Jax's perspective, where he's kind of becoming friends with these 2 characters, and by the point where he can like be vulnerable with them, Ribbit's her name. The frog character Ribbit. She confronts Jax one night in her room, and just kind of like talking about like who they were before and what they were doing in the outside world and what they remember as much as they possibly can. And Jax has this memory of like he pushed his mom down during an argument, and she didn't get back up, but he didn't stay long enough for him to remember if she did or not, so he ran away. So he was he went up being homeless for like a long time because he wasn't sure if he killed his mom or not. And so like Jax has this like revelation of like, I think I'm a very ugly person and all this stuff, and Ribbit puts a bow in Jax's hair. Like she has this like bow tie. She puts it in Jax's like on Jax's ear, and that freaks him out. And he starts really distancing himself from Ribbit at that point. Now, I would say you should watch the show yourself and come to your own conclusions. However, Gooseworks, the creator of the show, has kind of like said why this was a big deal and why the bow freaked Jax out and this kind of thing. And it's because Jax is a closeted trans woman. And Jax never really got a chance to come out as trans, and wanted to basically be as hyper masculine as possible, to prove that they are better than everybody else. And so the way this show ends, Kane eventually undeletes himself. He is omnipotent after all. Think like, could Dr. Manhattan from the Watchmen like undelete himself? Probably. Actually, he did. Like that's the thing. Like, we're talking about a god here. You don't just kill a god. So Kane undeletes himself, and he goes through a fairly prominent revelation where he understands that at this point, what he was doing was really fucked up. He really screwed up the lives of his people who he considered his friends. And in understanding that, he goes back to them with like hat in hand and goes like, okay, I have relinquished control of the game to you guys. Do with it what you want. And they go like, well, we're here forever, so we might as well, I guess we're going to live here now.
That's a bad ending to I have no mouth and I must scream.
Yeah, it's basically, realizing that the only real friends they have is each other, including the crazy AI who, isn't necessarily totally evil, but like was like he tortured them, like literally tortured them, and it's even said in the show like Zubul, who like Canis tortured the most. Zubul is just like, it's going to take me a long time to really trust you, like a long time. He's like, I had nothing but time, so however long it takes, that's how long it's going to take. One thing he does do to kind of show how to really like show them, like give them a peace offering, is he gives them a slideshow of who they are outside of the game, like as real people. And I'm not gonna go too much into that, but like just gonna like be like, hey, here's who you are. And like, I'm sorry you can't be these people now, but like you can bring aspects of yourselves into this world, and this is who you are there. If you want to still be that, you can be that here. But they all determine for themselves that this is the world they live in. This is their life. They might as well be who they are now. So, yeah, this is a show that's basically about code learning to exist within itself, and characters who shouldn't actually exist in this world actually existing. By this point, I've gotten the show. I realized that one of the big things that I was liking about it, besides the characters, of course, was the aspect of, it always kind of has this bit of that point, like in Pantheon, where when they reveal that everything is actually, like everything happened, but it's all been made up, sort of, in Pantheon, because we're running algorithms here, not just like we're not just living life. Like this algorithm has been run like millions and millions of times, and like this might be the one where we could fix things. And it's that thing where like the show has this aspect to it where when you realize this, it makes it even better. Because in like a lot of shows you'll get the like it's been all a dream, or like it never really happened, and here's why situation, and that makes it worse. But for some reason, certain shows can get away with it and nail that aspect of like it was all a dream, but that was the point. And existence it's more so when they start talking about existence and how fleeting those things are, and what it means to be alive, and you can kind of get away with it at that point, I think. So like, because Pantheon did that a lot too. Now, Amazing Digital Circus, I think this show does a lot more of the discussion of existence than Pantheon does, because the episodes are longer and they have a lot more like just kind of like, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about this scenes, as opposed to Pantheon, which like it's about the nature of existence, and can you exist within a machine? Is that machine version of yourself real situation? It talks about that in Pantheon, but in Pantheon they have a wider reaching story they're trying to tell, and they also have more episodes, and they don't have as many sit down and discuss it episodes, because there's a plot and it's moving a little more rapidly, whereas the plot in Digital Circus is very contained, very small, while still kind of tackling these broad, sweeping thought processes. And yeah, there's a lot to be said about the show. I don't have that much time to really discuss every little aspect of it, but one thing I do want to harken on is the way they go about talking about like having an existential crisis, for instance, and what it means to exist in the digital world. I think that they've done is created one where like they created a story where even by the point where you realize that everything is made up and the points don't matter, you know, you still have to feel for these characters because they don't really know when the lights are going to turn off. Like they're on a server somewhere. If that server goes dead, like they all stop existing. But it's the kind of thing where like it has that feel of it of anything could happen at any moment. We could all die at any moment. But we might as well just exist for the sake of existing because, you know, that is just what life is. And I mean, once they put that out there and you realize like, yeah, what they're talking about is in a way, you know, existing on our world is very similar where like we don't know if at any point like the world's going to blow up or whatever. Like, it's one of those things of like it's in a way kind of that very like young college age thought process of like, oh, what if we all just died tomorrow situation? But like, you know, it's
can only dream.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like we all have had something like that. I would say maybe not all of us, but most of us had kind of a thought of where it's just like, what if the planet got struck by a meteor or you know and blew up the entire world or like that kind of thing. Like, you know, would I be happy with who I am? Like, you know, is it like, have I lived a good life? Like, you know, should I, you know, should I be who I want to be or be the person who people want me to be? It's that of trying to determine yourself and whether or not your existence is actually good enough for you. Because does it matter that it's good enough for anybody else? Like it does, but it doesn't. Because, you know, the perception of everybody else colors your perception of yourself. But at the same time, if you're not happy with yourself, why would they be happy with you? It's asking these questions fairly constantly. And they're pretty deep, like interpersonal questions, like I guess interpersonal questions. And I like what it does with these because not a lot of shows want to tackle these questions, and it goes about it in a very mature way. While still also having episodes where like there's a lot of like fun goofs and interesting things happening, and like I said, the stakes in this show are very high, but on a personal level, like the world's not going to end if they don't escape. But like it's that aspect of they're trying to do this in a very it's almost like a revenge story, you know, when you get that like you want the person to get their revenge and succeed, but you don't want them to if they fuck it up, then it's going to be, you know, bad revenge, or it's going to be, you know, a terrible situation for them. You want them to get what they deserve, but you don't want them to ruin everything. And by the point where they get their revenge, they kind of become a different character, a different person. It's a show that's kind of like that, where you want them to succeed, but you know that by the time that everything ends, it's going to be, you know, we can't keep doing this. But the plot twist here is they turn it around and go like, actually, the ending is unsatisfying, and that's kind of the point. It's a very Sopranos kind of ending, where they're like, yeah, we don't know what happens at the end, really, but like, you know, for a while we just keep existing.
Don't worry, Sopranos 2 will answer that question.
Don't tell me this is Sopranos too.
Uh-huh.
Oh man,
Wouldn't shock me.
At this point, yeah. I mean, it's one of the most talked about endings in television history. So they brought it back. That wouldn't surprise me too much, even though the guy who played Tony Soprano was dead. So one other aspect I want to discuss just very quickly is the fact that, or at least mention, is that this this show is kind of a big deal animation wise. While it's not like the world's greatest animation, it's really good looking. But as far as the distribution of it, that's what actually matters in this case. The fact that this indie project got a fairly wide release in theaters is a big deal. I'm not saying that that makes it the greatest show in the world or anything, but hey, they got there, and I think that is pretty goddamn cool. Now, I did mention the release schedule of the show. Right now, you can watch all of it all in one shot if you wanted to. It's 9 episodes. Each episode is varying lengths of time. But I will point out, this is a 9-episode show, and it came out in, October 2023. And the ending came out this June. So, in 2026. So they had some time to ruminate and stew. And yeah, that is one of the problems that I think we've had this discussion before. One of the problems of indie cartoons right now, where because they're usually these very small teams, they want to do a good job, they can't really help but release the show like one episode every year or so sometimes. So
yeah, it's as much as terrestrial television channels and the large digital streaming platforms suck. You need this sort of not just money, but also
it's like an infrastructure situation,
resources that they have, marketing, legal, communications, social media, all that stuff. Like, when you don't have all of that on top of the money for the staff, you can't make animation at anything close to resembling what those traditional institutions are able to put it out at.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's always been said about animation is that it's very hard, and that's not just like the animating aspect of it. Like, it's difficult, of course. It's hard to make it look good, but it's hard as far as distribution goes, because animation is it's more widely accepted now, but it used to be seen mostly as a kids thing, so it was hard to get corporations on board to be like, yeah, we want to fund this animated show because it's funny, because it's going to be appealed to adults and this kind of stuff. Usually it's kind of like, yeah, we'll fund this for a Saturday morning block, so you can basically just shit at the show and just hopefully kids will have a good time, kind of thing. And yeah, that's kind of been it. For a show like this to exist, the fact that it got 9 episodes, and I'm not saying there aren't any missteps, but like a show like this to have an audience that it does, and for it to be as good as it is, I think is a pretty crazy achievement. Anyway.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about it?
No.
Okay, so in that case, I guess sexy clown time is over.
Yes.
So why don't you tell people where to find us?
You can find us at Blue Sky, which is at EIFNAR. That's where we are. You can shout at us about how much you like Amazing Digital Circus. You know what? Just don't like. don't send us anything. You know, I've already seen it anyway. There's a lot of Digital Circus fan art out there.
Okay. All
Like
right.
I've seen enough of it. I'm sure you're a wonderful artist, and I'm sure the way you draw Zubul and Gangle is very endearing. I want to see it. Leave space between you, me, and the Holy Ghost. So, right. Anyway, you should also look and subscribe and all that stuff on YouTube. Enjoy your show on Spotify, iTunes, etc. Share with your friends if you wish. You should also go to friends service djdane.com. Let's go to music djdane.com. Listen to his great tunes, and if you would scan his brain and shove that into a Digital Circus like situation, I'm sure his brain scan would love that.
I mean, assuming it's just a brain scan, that's like a clone. So what does current Andy care what happens to his clone? You know?
Yeah, this is
that's a different person, not his problem.
Yeah, I mean that's very Severance in that case, you know, like my Andy, my Audi kind of thing. Yeah, this is crap. Anyway, that is it for our show. Tune in next time for the Ecdysis episode of Everything's Fine, Everything's Ruined. See ya.
See ya.
Say it.